Welcome to this amazing series with none other than Sunder Madakshira, who is the advisor to the Prime Minister's Office on the National Digital Innovation Mission. He also runs his own foundation called the Ataha Madhwacharya for the Youth Foundation, which is focused on enriching our youth and giving them the understanding about the philosophy of life, the right direction in life, and how a value based living truly gives you joy, peace, and success. I'm Dr. Srivats Bharadwaj, a practicing dentist in Bangalore, most importantly, a seeker. Hi, Sundar.
Namaskara.
Namaskara. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well. Acharya Pamanosmakam, Acharyani cha Bharati, Devo Narayana Shishaha, Devi Mangala Devata. So we will start with the invocation of our gurus and Goddess Lakshmi and Sriman Narayana.
Very nice. Thank you so much. This actually takes back to our everyday at clinic. So our entire team actually starts the day together with this chant of let everybody be happy, right? Let everybody be healthy and let everybody be successful. So that's the thing we start our day with. And it is so nice to start this conversation also with you on similar lines. So, my journey has been all my life that I can reflect on. I have always been a seeker. I have never identified myself with a profession. Well, when most people say that he's a dentist and things like that, I actually feel fish out of water because I always went behind the answer on the purpose of life. In the event, obviously, you will make errors, you will make judgmental errors, you will probably think that this is the right thing that you got on track, then be that for a while, and then kind of you turn and realize that no, that made me uncomfortable and come back to something else. Now in my 50s, I realized that seeking is the right way. But what is the right thing to seek? Right? Because we all thought in our initial days, because of our, country, parental upbringing, that the focus should be on studies, education, so on and so forth. So, what is your perspective after being in this corporate world yourself? You've been over 25 years in a corporate world, being the CMO of many, many multinationals. How do you view your life? And I want to understand from you, how was your childhood? What really made you to think that you must invest so much amount of time and so much amount of energy in spending time in educating all of us?
So that's a very interesting question, I must say. First of all, I think when somebody you call as a seeker, it is actually corresponding with the first sutra of the Brahma Sutras. It says Athato Brahma Jignasa Om. The word Jignasa comes very close to inquiry, and as you know, with every Sanskrit word, it's got deeper and deeper meanings. But if we sort of look at it from that perspective, it actually says inquiry. It is something which you are always seeking, and only a seeker will have the questions. So if you look at the world of Shastras, it is a FAQ which somebody has compiled for our benefit. Of course, the greatest and the most famous FAQs that we know of is the Bhagavad Gita. But if you look at all the Shastras, the structure is the same, that there are the people who have their own experiences, which has led to questions in their mind. And they're asking somebody who is probably at a higher spiritual level to be able to educate them. And this is a never-ending process. Why do we say that? Because what we are seeking is infinity. We are trying to understand. So coming to the spiritual world, what we are seeking here is the nature of Brahman or the Paramatma or the ultimate God. including the hypothesis that he doesn't exist, he or she doesn't exist. So that is put to test. Unlike the popular perception that we have, that things have to be accepted as on face value, or they have to be accepted simply because they have come through a certain parampara, or they've come through certain flow which is coming, just a historic fact that has to be validated, and people just have to continue because that's the way it is. I think that is a very lazy way of understanding our spiritual world, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have needed so many granthas, we wouldn't have needed so many debates, we wouldn't have needed so many reinforcements. There should have been a line saying, look, there is God, you believe it, good for you, don't believe it, go to hell. That's not how the Shastras are. They have taken it upon themselves to explain what God is. So the deeper one goes, the greater is the depth of what they say. So I had this experience when I was standing next to the beach in Chennai, and they were saying that, look, there are some people who are who were going in a boat into the ocean, and they went inside for some time and came back, and they said it's lovely, but the person who was actually rowing the boat, he looked at me and he said, these guys were you are looking at the ocean, they went into the waters, but only a deep sea diver knows how beautiful the ocean is really. That's nothing compared to what you see from outside. This is nothing. This is boring. If you go inside, you've got a wealth of things that are there. I think that is the same thing with your whatever you're seeking. It is a never-ending pursuit. If you look at the Upanishad, who is asking the question? That's also in a Q&A format. Who is asking the question? Chaturmukha Brahma is asking question to Lord Narayana, or Shiva is asking a question to Brahma. These are the seekers at the highest level. Why are they asking questions? It is to clearly reinforce their own learning and get deeper, and also serve that as a role model for others to ask questions. So asking questions to get answers is a fundamental value in our scriptures, and you have to read it to really experience those questions and answers.
How nice. Actually, so what you're fundamentally saying is that questioning anything is acceptable. True teachers accept questions. Atheism is also accepted and has equal importance. When somebody believes in atheism, he's not disregarded or disrespected because he's an atheist. So basically being non-judgmental. Is my understanding right?
It's perfect. So every question is first of all welcome, and every question is evaluated only for its merit and answered accordingly.
I think that's a very important statement that you made, because I've been a full professor. I have been teaching at various institutes within India and outside, and so that defines a good teacher, right? Who doesn't feel intimidated by a question asked by a student. Also, this is what you're defining is what we believe as science. So this brings me even closer to understand that spirituality is not alien from what we as doctors, quote unquote, perceive as a dogma versus ours is science. Because just because we publish it in a journal and then there is evidence for whatever we do, we try to do reasoning with it and produce evidence and produce it in a paper or some sort of scientific publication format, which is then accepted as the norm, and that's how rules, regulations or formulations come into play in the practice of medicine. So this is very interesting to actually learn that, truly speaking, spirituality is also the science of living. Is that the right statement to make?
Absolutely.
Because I'll narrate a very important or a very significant incident that kind of triggered my thought process. I'm very careful when I listen to people. So I heard a friend of mine when I was a child who came up and said, "Did you see yesterday's National Geography, in which they said that the dinosaurs got extinct because it went from here to there, and there it didn't get food, and then it died, and something happened, the climate change, and it got extinct." So I was like, my God, how sure are they about a dinosaur that they never ever saw? I haven't seen one. Nobody who's speaking in that video or this also saw it. So I was pretty interested. So I went back and tried to watch that recording back again, in which the scientist who was actually explaining never said anything that my friend told. Because what my friend missed was the scientist who was explaining that using the terms probably. Right? And saying we are assuming that probably this happened or this might have happened. And in verbatim, like the Chinese whisper, we miss that, which is the most significant thing. How does this relate to perfect science of spirituality? Because most spiritual teachers also come across very intimidating, and they seem to be dead sure that this is right, because even the one who is speaking with a lot of conviction, but even he or she has actually not gone through that path. Like, who knows where is heaven, where is hell, where is nirvana, where is God? Nobody at least has seen this. So how does that come into perspective?
So in our Shastras, right, there is a focus, as I said, on inquiry. So it doesn't matter who says what, every hypothesis has to be put to test, and it has to be proven by any of these three methods, which is pratyaksha, which is by senses, or anumana, which is by inference, or it has to be agama, which is a part of our scriptures. Now, the people who have to establish anything have to follow this methodology. There is no hypothesis, there is no assumption that, okay, now that you've understood, the other things can be taken for granted. No, at no stage. Sometimes when you're studying the Shastras, you will realize that what you think is an open and a shut case is just the beginning of a debate. And the whole Pandora, that's really called opening the Pandora's box. Because opening a new set of questions is simply stunning to see. And it goes to prove that to establish a fact as a Shastra, as a scriptures, and this is very important for the youngsters to really know, that to establish something, the Shastras go to any amount of length to do this. Because why is it so important? Because this is going to guide not only your current life, but many other lives that you're going to have going forward. If you choose a certain school of philosophy, that is going to be something that's going to stay with you forever. We give that, example, or we tell that to a student who's in class 12, saying, now, so far, whatever you were moving was an automatic movement. But now, whatever you choose as your subject is going to dictate not only what's going to happen in the next 5 years, but probably the rest of your life. Because you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, and even within that, what do you want to do? Everything is going to get decided by this. So I think that is where I think the crux is, where we are saying that whenever we are accepting anything, irrespective of who says what, and this is where I encourage everybody to study the Shastras under a guru, rather than come to their own hypothesis about what it is and go by hearsay. And doctor, this is a we live in a world where creating content out of thin air, literally thin air, earlier thin air did not mean thin air, but now thin air means thin air. Right? So if you're creating content that is coming from unknown sources, and you are trusting that to be a school of philosophy, I think we are playing with fire. For example, if there is a medical formulation which is being given by a source which you cannot verify, how safe is it to be prescribed is something that we'll all have to actually deal with. But the impact of scriptures can go much, much beyond. It can mislead a person into the wrong path. At the same time, looking at it positively, this can be a new way in which somebody is trying to shape his whole life. So I think the path of inquiry goes on. Now there's another aspect to it. This is called the concept of what is called Aptavakya. So Aptavakya is nothing but somebody has been teaching you, you have been questioning, the process of Q&A keeps on going on. After a certain stage, you reach a point where you are saying that whatever this person is, Guru is saying, I've been testing everything, it's all coming out in a certain pattern which is all falling in place. So whatever this person is saying, I think I have the confidence that whatever else he is saying is also right. I still reserve the right to test it out. But I will go with this of some of these things as Aptavakya also. So it is a very fascinating world of inquiry, analysis, debate. I can tell you there are days, every day we have these lessons with my Guru. Some days what happens is every day we try to cover it in a manner that there is a hypothesis and it is getting tested and the philosophy is clarified. So you have a question and the same day hopefully you have the answer. But sometimes what happens is the question itself has many layers to it. So the question itself will take the entire class to understand. And the teacher would say, look, it's time up and we'll give the answer next day. All night, I'll be thinking about it as though I'm reading a murder mystery. It is that fascinating because once you get into this form of inquiry, what happens is this kind of thinking is feeding our soul. It is feeding the innermost desire of our soul, which we have been ignoring all along. We've been eating well, we've been doing all the other things very well, without bothering about that aspect of what is going to give us what is going to make the soul happy. Now this soul, all these things will directly start talking to a soul. It may not have anything to do with the body at all, but the bliss and the happiness that you feel when you have listened to a great lesson in the scriptures and you recline on your chair for 30 seconds thinking, I understood this aspect. I don't think I have ever had such a wow moment in my life.
Very nice. I think I agree with you. But the problem is that most of us do experience this sort of bliss, obviously, because you will see all kinds of people seeking spiritual or higher knowledge or science. But why does this feeling wean away after some time? Like, why do we not reflect upon these and why do we not make them life lessons that we imbibe and continue? It's like once I am done with my UKG, I go to first standard, then I go to second standard, then I go to 12th standard, I progress. But in your spiritual thinking and action, because I very firmly believe that knowledge is not knowing what subject is, but implementing whatever you have learned. Why are human beings such poor implementers? Because you face a very hard situation, a death of somebody who's very close, right? And currently we are seeing this atrocious Pahalgam, terror thing that has happened. But a lot of us just forget the pain. We never question why. And even if we question and seek that answer and find that bliss, why is it that it does not continue to be our nature?
Right. So there are many, many reasons for this. One is it depends on what level you have understood the philosophy. So you felt the bliss. It is still at an intellectual level. It has not percolated. It has not been internalized. So if that happens, the next day morning you wake up, it is over. It's like a great dish that you had for dinner last night. It was great. When you're having it, you felt that you had attained nirvana. But after that impact is over, the next day morning you've practically forgotten. I listen to a lot of classical music, and whenever I attend concerts, my golden test for the concert, my wife would always ask, how was the concert? So I will invariably end up saying it's an 8 on 10. So I think somewhere there she started feeling I'm a very liberal evaluator. But my test of what's a great concert is what I recollect next day.
Are you singing it in the bathroom next day?
Yeah, so when you, more than that, I think when you wake up, that every Carnatic music concert has a main kriti, which lasts for an hour. If that raga is still playing in your mind, that means it was a great concert. And if you are able to recollect the order in which the different songs were presented, I think that's a great concert. Because it was a great concert, it has not remained at an intellectual level, but it's got and percolated into an internal level. The same thing happens with Shastras. There is Shravana, there is Manana, and there is Nidhidhyasana. All these 3 steps lead to a body of knowledge. Otherwise, this is good to know. Trivia, what we call as trivia. This all becomes trivia. Oh, great, today I'll learn this, great, I understood, I move on in life. So I think we have to make enough effort to internalize it. And how does that happen? By meditation. See, many people ask this question, what, if you read the stories of all the great gurus, what you will see is that they all spent a lot of time meditating. So what were they meditating on? They were meditating on precisely the lessons that they have learnt, the spirit of inquiry that they had, and so on, is something which they are contemplating upon, and then saying, okay, what is the contradiction? If I say this, what happens to that, and so on and so forth. So if somebody has understood it with that thoroughness, that's why we say everything in the Shastras have to be read with 6 commentaries. Why do we need 6 commentaries? It's because each aspect, however limited it may be, is understood thoroughly, and all your questions are drained, and then you move on to the next topic.
So fundamentally, what comes to me is that a state of meditativeness or being in meditation is not a 20-minute, 30-minute, 1 hour activity, and also not that you're single pointedly thinking about something unknown or known, but it is about consciously being aware of the actions, the answers that you have got, and constantly debating in your mind on how could this have been better. And so a constant thought process in your mind towards achieving that final goal of that particular activity is still being meditative.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful, because so that means that a lot of people who probably may not even know that they are spiritual seekers, but like I do this, for example, about my patients, right? So if I am thinking about, like if I am scheduled to do a procedure, a surgery or something like that, even before I do it, I probably do it 50,000 times in my head, and I'm ready for different permutations of combinations. Like you said, if I'm doing this procedure, if this happens, what am I going to do? If that happens, what am I going to do? So it's kind of a readiness or a preparedness that you work on. Coming back to the previous question on where you very easily said that is why it is important to have a guru, right? Like you mentioned about knowledge coming out of nowhere with reels and so many unauthorized things. Let's be honest, there are people who are self-proclaimed gurus as well, right? And we all go through experiences of that. How does one really know that the guru who is teaching him actually is the right guru, and his interpretation of this scripture that you are saying is the right one?
Absolutely. Very good question. I think the first and the foremost aspect to remember about the guru is, I think the Indian scriptures are the only style of scriptures where it is permitted that the teacher tests the student before accepting him as a student. That's not the end. The student needs to test the teacher before he accepts him as a guru. So it's a two-way process. Like the way a student evaluates a college, whether this is the right place I should be studying, the student also has to, the Shishya also has to evaluate the guru. So that's the first, it's a big shift from the way we have seen the Guru Shishya Parampara itself. But clearly, I think here are the features of a guru that one should look for. Number one, is that person knowledgeable? Has he understood and has he studied the scriptures? I think if you put this one test to the gurus today, you will get to know who stands where.
But how do you do that?
So, in the manner that they respond to something, when a question is asked or when an aspect is presented, there is a manner in which a knowledgeable person presents it, as opposed to somebody who's thinking on the fly and giving you an answer. I see this coming very frequently with so many people, where somebody was asking a guru that what is happiness. That person gave that happiness is knowledge. Where is it said that happiness is knowledge?
But
that's what he thought.
But the seeker also doesn't know this, right? Because the seeker is like an LKG student being taught ABCD.
Yes.
Right? If the teacher will say A for apple, right? He doesn't even know that there is something else, that A for apricot is also true. So if the guru doesn't even reveal that, because it's like ignorance. Like most often it happens in our profession, where there are patients. I actually hate to call them patients, I like to call them seekers. I learned this very recently, because you're also seeking help to get your health better.
Right.
So when you come to a doctor, somebody gives you a treatment plan and you trust, blindly you trust. It happens so many times that people trust their doctors or healthcare providers, and the doctor actually doesn't reveal the entire truth, that there could be 3 ways to deal with this. Then we both become partners in that care and come to a consensus which is common, that we will go through this process to deal with this problem. And if it happens like this, we will mitigate it by this way.
Right.
Right? What if you're meeting a doctor who's not creating this transparency, who is saying that this problem can be dealt only by this way, and you go through it and finally you hit a roadblock, then you realize that actually I didn't need to go through this at all, and there was another way to do this. So the patient is just like this seeker in spiritual life who is then stunned, and most or all of us go through this, and that is where I think we are all kind of disappointed. And second is, there is also a rigidity among teachers, that you have to do this. To me, it may not be making sense, but that's the roadblock. So still I am bewildered with this search for who do you learn anything with. Is learning so important?
Yeah, no, absolutely. See, the learning from a guru and the process of learning is absolutely paramount to understanding anything in life. Why only spirituality? Now, when you look at, so I was just counting on the different and sort of enumerating all the parameters that one should look for. One is knowledge. Now, you are right, some of it may not be very visible. The second thing that one should look at is, what is the effort that the guru himself has made to get the knowledge? When you go and try and meet a doctor, you try and see, you may not understand everything that he has done, but you also look at the pedigree of the doctor and say, what has he studied? Where has he studied? What is his qualification? The third thing is, the hallmark of a spiritual guru is taking the seeker to get a better understanding of God, not calling himself God. So if any spiritual teacher says that he is God, that's the first disqualification of being a guru. Because the understanding of the Shastras is very different about what is God and what guru is. He can be a good guru, he can be a great guru, he can claim that, but he cannot claim that he is God. Second, the fourth thing is, as someone asamshayaha samshayachit, he should not have doubts, and he should be able to clarify the doubts of the seeker. So he can, if he is able to clarify those, give answers to those, then he qualifies to be a guru. Then another aspect is parampara, which is, what is the lineage that he comes from. So one may look at it and say, why do we need lineage? Maybe this guy came up with some great, solution or a great theory all by himself. Maybe his predecessor didn't see. Here, the point I would like to, think about is, let us say somebody opens a brand new hospital and says everything in this hospital is brand new. All the nurses graduated yesterday. Day before yesterday, all the doctors had their convocation. Every equipment has been only unpacked last night. So please come and have an open heart surgery. Everything is very new. We don't do that. So there is a parampara, and why this parampara is important is this line of knowledge has been tested by so many knowledgeable people in that parampara.
But isn't that counter to all the big gurus like Madhwacharya and Shankaracharya? They didn't have pedigree.
They did, of course.
They were born intuitively great, isn't it?
Yes. So they were born, and speaking specifically of Sri Madhwacharya, he is not a pravartaka of Madhva philosophy. This philosophy existed even earlier. The challenge was the Sanatana Dharma had got distorted in so many schools of knowledge, so many schools of philosophy. So he brought everything onto the same page, corrected all those inconsistencies and inaccuracies, and restated what is the real philosophy. Now, how do we know this? If you look at the Sarva Moola Granthas, Sri Madhwacharya has composed 37 Granthas and which are called as Sarva Moola Granthas. In all these Sarva Moola Granthas, he gives quotations. So if you take out all the quotations, I think about 60% of the text will go away. He has used his own words only to connect those quotations. So he says Sarva Moola means everything that you are saying is in the Moola Granthas. I am quoting from there. So you accept Mahabharata, you accept Bhagavad Gita, you accept the Vedas, very importantly, you accept the Upanishad. I am quoting from there. So if you say this is the meaning, that is wrong because the Shastras are saying something else. So what Madhwacharya did was a corrective process. He did not say that, look, I am coming up with one brand new idea. He said, for example, the Bhagavad Gita doesn't say this, the way it is being interpreted. It is being where Paramatma and Atma are getting interchanged. It is not acceptable because nowhere in the Shastras has this been said. So he removed all those inconsistencies so that parampara is important.
So is it right to assume that the authenticity of true spiritual knowledge is diluted in the teacher as well as the seeker, which has probably given rise to mushrooming of easy teachers and easy seekers, which I also see today in my own field. Like, truly, maybe there are very good doctors with lots of knowledge, but they are outnumbered by people who are just practicing what the patient needs. So most patients may think, why should I go through all of this comprehensive care? Not required. Today, my pain is here. You just give me cure for this. But actually, this pain may be because of something else. I don't want to treat that. I don't want to look at it. So give me something easy. So is it right to assume that both ends are at fault?
Of course, I think, it's very difficult to say what led to the other. Is it that seekers diluted their approach and that's
Chicken
why
and egg story.
It becomes like that. But the fact is that today what we are seeing is a dilution of any form of inquiry. Lack of depth in many things, be it music, be it politics, be it policy forming, be it any other field. Now there's a big fear that going forward will genuine inventions and discoveries happen at all, because people are not willing to go into the depth. So if a researcher is hell-bent on finding his solution on Google, if it was there in Google all the time, then it wouldn't be called an invention, isn't it? So if I don't find, it's called the appification of the world. If I don't find it on an app, it doesn't exist. And I am not willing to go to cross what is already available. So coming back to this, I think that is probably one of the reasons. But the good news is that the traditional form of education for scriptural studies is intact for 800 years. Those texts exist. In fact, they've been enriched over the centuries by different commentators. Today you have more and more people writing translations, more and more people giving that content out, these classes out on the internet, that the way we want. So the system, it may not, it's gone some minor modifications and adaptations to suit the world around us, but that system is available even today. So for the person who is seeking seriously, there are avenues available. There's no dearth of that.
Nice. So, like as a doctor, I'm sure many doctors go through this. Like most doctors have good intent. Their knowledge levels and skill levels may vary. But even let us assume very knowledgeable and very skillful doctors still perform something and it goes bad. The outcome is not favorable, I would put it that way. How should a doctor view that? Because ultimately we are also human beings, and for most people who are listening to this, they may or may not know that doctors go through burnout because of these things. Like there are days and nights that we don't sleep. We don't know what to do about this. Death is very common in a hospital, and most patients may be thinking that after the death the doctor moves on. It's never that. I have very very close friends whom I meet almost every day, and we walk together and stuff like that, and the conversations are so deep driven because the doctor does not even know whom to share it with, right? Because family may not be the right place to share it with, and there is a sort of isolation because you are the top doctor in that particular field and you are responsible for it, period. And there is that patient emotion. Over a period of time when you're treating patients, you also develop a sort of attachment to those patients, however much we are taught not to develop that. But you just can't next day come in and not see that person. You know, if he has gone back happy home, it's nice. How does a doctor go through these emotions, and what is the scriptural advice to doctors?
I think this is fairly common in other fields of other professions as well. But now that we are talking about this particular field, I think if the best doctor with the highest level of skill and highest level of competence has still failed, that means there is a power which is above everything, which is controlling the necessary outcome. I think that's the message of Bhagavad Gita very clearly. What Krishna says is Nimittamatram Bhavasavyasachin. So he refers to Arjuna and he says that you are just a tool in my hand, no matter how great you are. Now how do we know Arjuna is great? Because he is referring to him as Savyasachin. That means he was ambidextrous. He could shoot from both the sides, the arrows. So the opponent will not know which side he is going to shoot. This was not a competence that many people had at that time. But what Krishna is saying is, you are a Savyasachin, ambidextrous, yet, and you are a great archer. He is the world's greatest archer, no doubt. But in my hands, you are just a tool. So don't take yourself so seriously. You are fighting this war only on my command, and there's an opportunity destiny has given you to fight. So just do your job and go home. I think the same thing will have to be applied here as well, that the intent was good, which is what you started with, which is I think all in our hands. Beyond that, it is some divine force which is driving our actions. So I would say that that's the way to put it in perspective. That is, I tried my best, but it went beyond. Next day morning, yes, it's not going to be just another day, but this too shall pass. And as a doctor who's now going to attend to more patients, and probably many unexpected situations might arise, I have to be at my best. And pray God, I know of doctors who wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, pray for the first 3 hours, exactly proportional to the number of oncological cases they are handling, and say that, look, this is beyond me, but I have to go at 6 o'clock and I have to treat. If I don't have enough spiritual power, I don't think I can give that power to somebody else. So I will do the actions, but behind that action, if that special energy that is needed in an automatic car, we have this thing called the boost. So I need that boost, I need that energy, I need that thinking power to be able to make the right decisions. So yesterday was not my day, but we will live to fight another day.
Yeah, very nice. And a lot of patients actually get, uh, I should say, surprised when they see that doctors believe in God. I've had this question so many times that, oh my God, you're a doctor and you believe in God. So somewhere that messaging has gone. But there are other reasons also. I wish even patients understand this, because on the doctor's neck is also a legal arm that is swinging. Because a lot of times there is truth, and a lot of times there is irrational behavior by patients, like, doctors getting hit. You're seeing doctors getting hit very badly for
Attacked.
bad, attacked for bad outcomes, and also being sued irrationally and stuff like that. And it takes 20 years maybe to resolve that. At the end of it, what happens to the doctor's career if he's 40 and then he gets sued, and all his career goes in just defending this? At the end of it, he's proven, God forbid, if he's proven innocent, he's lost his career. So very good point. I think ultimately that's a dream world to have, where patients and doctors understand the best intent and perform. I'll actually give you a real instance of Dr. Balasubramaniam, who runs this Swami Vivekananda youth movement in HD Kote. And he started a hospital, which is a charitable hospital for tribals. And this is like a 40-year-old thing. I was in conversation with him, and he told me that, here the case is reverse. And he said, if there is a delivery that happens and the baby dies, the entire family comes and consoles the doctor, saying that you did your best, still things happen, don't worry. So I just imagine that, I hope both doctors and patients understand this, because somewhere ambition is overruling our you know, uh, intent, money, greed, and these are very quickly eroding the entire system. And so I wouldn't fault patients at all, because if they come across doctors who are greedy or healthcare professionals who are greedy and who are probably doing this, so there has to be this balance that is truly to be created. Having said this, how criminal is money? Because a lot of people inherently don't like successful people or people who are wealthy. And does spirituality and wealth go together, or you have to drop wealth to become spiritual?
You have to drop greed to be, if you want to be spiritual, not wealth. Wealth is a source of power. If you see all the great kings, they did the Rajasuya Yagna. They will send a horse and it will go around. So why were they doing it? It was not to get those kingdoms into you. You get those kingdoms to be part of your kingdom so that you can be a Dharma Raja. You can have the expanse of Dharma in more places. The king can remain. That guy who was the king earlier can still remain. But he has to subscribe to the path of Dharma. This is what good kings did. So if you look at it, wealth by itself is revered. And to ensure that people don't go after only one type of wealth, wealth is, sort of explained in many ways. Money is only one part of wealth. Health is wealth. We know this. Knowledge is wealth. Something we know. Ayushya, or our lifespan, that is the biggest wealth, because that becomes zero, then you can keep on counting everything else, but you're dead. So the whole focus is to have wealth which you are using as a social tool. I think our Pejawar Swamiji said it very well. saying that God wants us to be the trustee of this wealth, whereas we have become thirsty of this wealth. So thinking that all this is mine, all the wealth that I have around it is mine, and it is permanent, both are signs of a disaster. This money is not mine, it came from something, I have to use it. Look at how much I can do. Who are the people who get a lot of money in donations? Are people who want to do deploy it in social causes. So money is wealth for sure. Without that, I don't think the world will run. But how much is enough for yourself and very importantly for others is something that is said. The story comes of Dhruva. After he spends 36,000 years as an emperor or Chakravarti, the day is 36,000 years, and Dhruva Loka is explained in detail because there's no world like that. He had an ivory bed, and the linen there was as soft as the cream of a milk, and so on. It's a very opulent place. The day he finished his 36,000 year, people woke up in the morning not to find him anywhere. He has even left slippers behind, all the ornaments that he was wearing, because those were, according to him, burden. He was waiting for that second when he completes, because he knew that his calling is something else. So just like a person who probably he's got a promotion and he's transferred somewhere else, the day that opportunity comes, he just hands over everything to someone else and then leaves. People may say, my God, such a big office, he had so much power, why did he leave that and go? They say, don't you know, he's been promoted, he's taking up a bigger responsibility. So people who are spiritual seekers always will have a higher purpose to seek, and money is a big enabler. By itself is not wrong.
It goes, it's very powerful when it probably reaches the right hand. But is it also true to assume that when you get money, see, everything has an energy, right? So money also has that energy. Is it true that when you get rich or when you get money specifically, the other forms of wealth, unfortunately, in this material world have no meaning the way people are living. But does money also change the way you behave and you start thinking?
You shouldn't be. It shouldn't be affecting you at all. Because if you are looking at it as something that you have got as a source of energy and deploying it for something else, it is not yours.
So your intent matters more.
Your intent matters, and what is the relationship that you have. If you think that this is not mine, it's not yours. For example, destiny has had it that I have stayed in some of the best hotels in the world. But then every time you are checking into a room that you are going to check out. However great that room is, however great whatever position you occupy, if you believe that that is not permanent, it doesn't cause any kind of distress to you. But if you're thinking that this is what it is, then it is going to cause, the day you have to give it up, it will cause you that much pain. So I think it is not, money is a great source of energy and it has to be deployed, not as your money or wealth. It is all belonging to God and it has to be put to the right purposes, which again has been ordained by the Shastras. So how you should be using that money, what proportion should you be using that money, everything is very clearly mentioned there.
Does knowledge give you ego?
Yes, it can also be a source of ego. It is very common. We say vidya dadati vinayam. The true test of a knowledgeable person is his vinaya. If that does not happen, that is like a symptom. You are a doctor, so that's like a symptom. If that person is egoistic, then he's got a few notches to go before that. So there was a king, there was a scholar. Every 1 year, the scholar would go to the king and say, look, I have understood all the scriptures. I want to teach you. So the king would say, okay, you do one thing, I think you need a little more studies. Why don't you come next year after doing a deeper level of studies? So the same thing happened. Again, the second year, that the scholar, the king said the same thing. So this happened over some 15-20 years. And finally this guy said, why is this king doing this to me? I have learned so much. I am ready to teach him. Why does he? So am I really missing something? So he went back to his scriptures and studied it very deeply. And then he realized that he is missing a lot of things. And he started digging deep. He inquired. He looked at things more, commentaries, looking at it from multifarious ways. As a consequence, what happened? The year passed by. That year passed by when he was supposed to again go and talk to the king. Couple of years passed by, and he still didn't realize that he has to go back because his purpose had become something else. He had gone too deep, and he said, no, let me forget about teaching others. First, let me learn. Let me go into the depths of it. So the king then sent word and said, where is this fellow? He didn't show up. Then people looked at him and said, no, he's studying still, and he's gone very deep into that. He's cut off from the rest of the world. He's in his own world, doing his research, reading more and more and more, going deeper and deeper and deeper. Every day we see that he seems to be more elevated. King says, now I want to learn from him. So he comes to the guru and says, now you are ready to teach. So knowledge definitely gives ego.
So let's assume that you begin from one point, like you're running a race in the stadium. So you go all the way 1,000 meters and you come back here. So all of this journey is seeking. But at the end of it, you come back to probably that final destination, what we call as finish line. And what if there is somebody who doesn't follow anything, but is honest, is truthful, is blissful, accepts life as it comes, doesn't even intuitively too many times even question, why is this happening to me, why I should have been rich, I lost my wealth, whatever happens. He's in a state of bliss, doesn't do any rituals, accepts the fact that everything here is owned by that supreme power called God. Why should I pluck some flower, buy some flower, considering it to be my money? That itself I feel is ignorance, if he feels so, and then offer it to the Lord and then assume that I have done all of this. Where if he thinks this is a statement of ego, rather he just accepts everything and mentally offers everything, including himself and his thoughts, to God. What would you call that person?
See, I think the person is a very positive individual. He has accepted a lot of things around him as destiny, and he is very content with whatever he has. But this is not, it will not lead to a state of bliss. You use the word bliss. It can give him some happiness. He can be contented for some time, but unfortunately, that's not the nature of the soul. Soul is always seeking, whether you look at it or like that or not. The soul is always seeking, even for that person. So, the only thing which moves the needle is not any of this that you mentioned. All of those are important qualities, good to have. But what is going to give us that ultimate bliss is knowledge. Scriptural yathartha jnana. Understanding the things the way they are and getting a better understanding of that Brahman only is going to meet the needle. So he is probably at a stage, and he's still a positive individual. He's far better than people who are making life miserable for themselves and others. He doesn't fall into that category. He is a Rajasic person. He is a person who is taking positives, and whatever happens in his life, he says, that's it. I'm contented with whatever I have. He will not have moved the needle anywhere. Right? In any classroom, you would have seen that there will be a bunch of students who have already attained this nirvana state, as we call it. They don't want to study. They're smart. They'll pick up a few things here and there. They get 40%. And they look at everybody and say, look, you guys got 95%. What big deal? I also passed, you also passed, we have all passed. And I'm just there, we all had a good time. And we've all had such people in our, in our classes. So they probably will never probably able to see the kind of progress. But they're very nice people. They've not harmed anyone. In their avarice to achieve something. Ambition is different from avarice. So in their avarice, they have not trampled on others. They're just there. So it's a very nice static state to be. But it is not progress.
Is there a concept of free will versus that your life is written in a CD, nobody can change it, versus having a free will that I can change my life?
No. So the scriptures very clearly say that whatever is destined only will happen. Everything has already been scripted. Now, some people may say, no, but I did this and my life changed. Even that was scripted. It was scripted that you will change your life. It is all driven by, as we have seen, it is driven by your swarupa or your nature of your soul, the karmas that you perform, and how the progress has been from there. So the concept of free will doesn't exist. There is a concept of what is called datta swatantrya. That means God himself has given you a limited power to craft your life the way you want. But everything else is happening as per the will of the God. So if one believes in this, he is bound to see a positive progress all along. Many people say that, I've done a lot of negative things, but at the end of the day, I've prayed to God. Am I negative or positive? I said, of course you are positive. Definitely you are sattvika. Because otherwise you wouldn't have done it. Even at the end of the day, you would have concluded that, that I am God or whatever you would have thought about. So the negativity can be, by doing positive things over and over again. That is why it is say, satatam. The word satatam has been used in all the shlokas that you see. Guru bhungshvacha karmani jam niyatam haripada vinamritya satatam harireva guru harireva paro harireva guru harireva jagat pitrumatra gatihi. Satatam means doing it over and over again to the point that you have internalized it. That's all we have to do. It's just 2-line shloka which tells the path forward for all of us.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Sundar, for this amazing, insightful discussion we have had. Obviously, I'm going to take a lot of learning from this personally, and I'm sure that our audience also would benefit from this. I'll surely think a lot. I have 10,000 more questions, and I'd be more than happy to sit with you whenever you find time and go through this amazing journey that you have been sharing about all the knowledge that you have accumulated, which is helping many people like me, and I'm sure a lot of others that you have been able to influence. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I think very insightful discussion as well, and I look forward to having more questions and pray to him to give us the power to be able to answer those questions in a manner which is understood and useful to people.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.